There was a moment in my art journey when I looked at my drawing and thought, why do my characters look so flat? I wanted things to appear more three-dimensional, but I didn't want to mess everything up with a gazillion lines that I could barely even distinguish anymore. I wanted to understand things well enough to draw perspective intuitively, without needing to draw grids and such all the time. And this is where a lot of boxes come into play. Hi there, I'm Julie, and in this video I'm gonna show you how drawing boxes helped me understand and master perspective, improving my drawing skills in a short amount of time. I'll also walk you through some of my thoughts and major breakthroughs because, let me tell you, there were a lot of things that I was doing wrong. So, when I first decided that I wanted to truly get good at perspective this time, I chose to set aside all of my previous understandings and approach things as if it were my first time again. Although I'd studied perspective a little bit in the past, I didn't want to assume I already knew everything about it. And I'm saying this because I used to think I knew quite a bit about perspective, especially the linear one, so 1, 2, and 3-point perspective. Because some of it seems so simple, right? Well, I then realized there were actually many things that I didn't understand. There were aspects that still weren't very clear to me. And honestly, some of that information wasn't very easy to find, or at least it's easy once you know it, but it wasn't explicit to me at first. And I hope that by sharing these insights, they can make things clearer for you too. As I mentioned, my ultimate goal was to understand perspective well enough to use it intuitively. I didn't need my drawings to be 100% accurate, they just needed to be good enough to appear believable and feel more real. To practice this, I decided to rely solely on boxes and observe how they would change in different angles and perspective. The reason being, first, they're an easy form, and I wanted to start it simple, and second, most complex form can ultimately be constructed or visualized using boxes, and mastering them allows you to draw potentially anything you can envision. But before things became intuitive, I needed to thoroughly grasp the theory. And so here I am, starting all over again with one-point perspective. One-point perspective is a simple technique used to create the illusion of depth and space on a flat surface. After drawing a line across the canvas, representing the viewer's eye level, you place a dot anywhere on this line, known as the horizon line. This dot is called the vanishing point, and it's the point where all parallel lines will converge. For all the boxes placed below the horizon line, you'll see the top plane, while for those placed above it, you'll see the bottom plane. If a box crosses the horizon line, you'll perceive only the side plane. Up to this point, everything seemed pretty straightforward, and so I thought, let's try and add some complexity by rotating these boxes. I just need the line to converge to the vanishing point, and that's it. This was the first attempt I made after that thought. Can you see what's wrong? At first, I couldn't see either, or better, I could feel something was off, but I didn't understand what my mistakes were. And so, as always, whenever I have a question, I go on YouTube looking for the answer. But I didn't really find what I was looking for. I didn't want a mathematical method to correctly rotate boxes in space. I just wanted to understand why this looks wrong. Because I drew all the lines towards the vanishing point. Why is this not working? The answer to this question actually came to me much later in my studies, and so for the time being, I just continue with my exercises. And don't worry, I'm gonna share what the problems were in a little bit. But first, I wanna touch on a few other things so that everything will be clear later on. Let's continue with two-point perspective. Two-point perspective, as the name suggests, involves two vanishing points instead of one. Usually, these points are located quite far outside the canvas, but there's no fixed rule for the distance between them. Generally though, it's best not to place these points either too close or too far apart from each other, as this can distort the boxes and make them look unnatural. Also, notice how the convergent lines flatten and become more horizontal as they get closer to the horizon line. This is helpful to keep in mind even when drawing something like a human body, for example. It's an easy trick to make your drawing look instantly more three-dimensional. And lastly, let's conclude this brief recap on linear perspective with three-point perspective. Three-point perspective can be seen as an extension of two-point perspective, where an additional vanishing point is added either far below or far above the horizon line, depending on whether you're looking down or up at your boxes. To set the position for the third vanishing point, you can use the distance between the first two as a guide. This is a good rule of thumb to keep your drawings from looking too squashed or too stretched out. Also, these three vanishing points, when connected, form a triangle, and it's best to draw within this area to avoid distortion. This technique is particularly effective for drawing something seen from high or low angles, adding a sense of drama to your drawings. It also enables you to capture more dynamic views, making everything look more interesting. Okay, now that I've clarified these few things, I can return to the old drawing I was talking about before. Seeing it again will probably make my mistakes look even more obvious. Can you see it now? What I didn't get right the first time was that in one-point perspective, the bottom plane of the box should remain parallel to the ground and perpendicular to the plane of the horizon line. Or, an easy way to think about it, the front plane of the box always has to face the viewer. It has to face us, basically. The moment I rotated these boxes, I was introducing new vanishing points. If I simply rotated the boxes on the vertical axis, I would have a 2-point perspective. And if I tilt them, for example, away from me, I would have 3-point perspective, with a third vanishing point far above the horizon line. And that's why almost all of the boxes of my previous attempt are wrong. Essentially, I was introducing new vanishing point without even realizing it. Another big realization I had, and that I didn't grasp at first, was that multiple types of perspective can exist simultaneously on the same drawing. Let's look at this photo, for example. Here, the lines are all converging to the vanishing point on the left side of the image. Most of these structures, like the dock and the train, follow this one-point perspective. However, if you look at this section here, you can clearly see it has 2 vanishing points located far outside the canvas. Basically, each object or group of objects might have their own set of vanishing points when they're oriented differently relative to the viewer. The moment I had this epiphany, things started to make sense. Even though a scene could be even more complicated than I originally thought, because of all of these perspectives intersecting with each other, once I understood the principle, I could begin to figure out what was happening there. And that's why mastering perspective at an intuitive level becomes even more important. This way, I don't need to plug reads and be overly mathematical every time. Instead, I can rely on my knowledge and observational skills to make objects appear more three-dimensional. Once I felt I was grasping the concepts, I moved on to drawing boxes freehand, putting into practice what I've learned. As I'm doing here, for example. Even with these simple exercises, I saw major improvements in my artwork. I think it's something I underestimated because it seems so simple, and I thought I already moved past that point. However, revisiting it made a huge difference for me and rapidly improved my drawing skills. After all, you can construct everything with boxes, and mastering perspective is extremely helpful if you want your drawings to look more three-dimensional. In this video, I focused a lot on boxes, but there are other fundamental shapes that you can practice with, like spheres, for example. They help me a lot in drawing the eyes correctly. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can watch this video right here. See you there!